Gypsy, I looked out. The moon is full, he said. Let's go on an adventure. An adventure? Woodrow, we're confined, remember? So remember, the two of them are still in trouble. Woodrow, because he beat up Buzz, and she's in trouble because she cut her hair off. So what? Turn out your
That's
light.
not the case. That's not the case.
What are you saying?
She actually wanted to do. She wanted to do the same punishment as Woodrow.
Yeah, so yeah, it's true. It's not, yeah, exactly. So it wasn't done by her parents, it was done on herself. You're right about that, Arthur. She decided
No,
that
but
she,
you said she cut her
yeah.
hair. No, it's because that she wanted to do the same punishment as Woodrow.
Yeah, why though?
Because she wanted it to be fair.
Yeah, why though? Because she cut her hair.
No, it's because she cut her hair, so she felt bad.
Yeah, so she felt bad for it. So she still had regret for what she did. And I guess you can say for leaving school, right? So she left her school without permission and kind of made a big scene or whatever. Um, all right, so the moon is full, he said. Let's go on an adventure. An adventure, Woodrow can find. So what? Turn on your light and they'll think you're asleep. Come on. Where to? I said. Everywhere. We're going with blind Benny on his rounds. So again, earlier in the story, you should remember to make this bigger so it's like a bit more visible. It doesn't let me do it. It's not letting me do it. Grr. All right, so um, remember, blind Benny walks around the town, and late at night he doesn't come out during the day. Remember, he cannot see, and he basically just goes looking for scraps and stuff, things that he can keep that will help him out. In a second, I was slipping jeans and a shirt over my short pajamas and putting on socks and shoes. Out by the street, blind Benny was waiting for us with Dog. "Howdy, Miss Beauty," he said to me as I came up beside him and spoke. "How's the things going with you?" "I'm okay. Please call me Gypsy," I said. Now remember, she doesn't like being called Beauty for those two reasons. The one being her father calling her that, and she's kind of doesn't like being seen solely for her looks. "Why, sure, if that's what you want." His face, even with its peculiar eyes, seemed happy and peaceful in the bright moonlight.
Wait, I have a question.
Okay, what's up?
Why does she get offended when he calls her that if he can't see? So it's really not.
For those two reasons. It doesn't matter if he can see her or not. It's still offensive to her, right? So again, it's A, it's going to remind her of the father, and B, she doesn't want to be known as that, right? Even if I'm blind and whatever, it'd still be offensive. It doesn't make a difference if I can see or not, right? It doesn't make a difference. It's still offensive. To her. I'm not saying it should be offensive, but that's how she takes it. Why, sure, if that's what you want. His face with its peculiar eyes seemed happy and peaceful in the bright moonlight. "Benny has new shoes," Woodrow said, and he pointed at Benny's feet. "You see?" "Ain't they fine?" Benny said proudly. He raised one foot, then the other for my inspection. "They are," I said. "They are wonderful shoes. Brand new. Boys down at the hardware bought 'em for me," blind Benny went on. "They seen I was part near barefoot in my old ones with my toes a sticking out, and they says it's gonna be a cold winter. Woolly Worms is wearing thick coats already." "Where are we going to?" Woodrow asked, impatient to get started. "Towards the station," said Benny. "We'll go down the tracks tonight." Quietly but rapidly we set off down the street three abreast, with Benny holding on to Woodrow's arm. "So we can move faster," he explained. "When I got nobody to hold on to, I have to feel my way, and it slows me down considerable." Right, so the fact that Woodrow's holding his hand, they can like walk faster because Benny doesn't have to worry about bumping into stuff. Hiccup, the Hicks's dog, and the Compton's Sandy fell in step with Dog behind us. Again, something to recognize here that you don't see anymore is dogs were not like put away in fenced in houses. They basically were allowed to roam around the neighborhood. So anytime that Benny comes around, these dogs just start following. Um, well, all right. So where am I? Don't want to lose my spots. Oh, boys at the hardware is like family to me, Benny said. "I live in a room up over the store, you know. I have your mama and pappy to thank for that, Gypsy." So this is a little bit interesting thing. So for some reason, Benny is living above the hardware store, and the reason is because of Amos and Love. Okay, we'll find out why. "How's that?" I said, curious to know what business Mama would ever have with blind Benny. "Well, it began way back there in Cold Valley, Kentucky." Now, again, you might not remember because we haven't really discussed it too much. This story does not take place in Kentucky. The story takes place in Virginia, in Cole Station, Virginia. So he's talking about living in another state. So let me just show you guys, just so they have a little context for it, right? So, Mhm. Kentucky, Virginia. Right, so you can see that, right? Can you see that? This is Kentucky here, and then you have Virginia here. I'm not sure how close these things are. They're probably not too far away from where they are. I could actually go on Google and find it. So, what was the name of that city? It was Cold Valley, Kentucky. So let's see how far away these two things are. Doo, doo, doo. The first one, Cold Valley. So this is. All right. So if you look at the map, I don't know if you guys ever use Google Maps. It's kind of a cool tool. So it looks like it's right near. How come it's putting that? That doesn't make sense. It's putting me near Cincinnati. It's not right. So let me type it in here. Cool. Is it that close to Cincinnati? Maybe it is. Oh, I guess it's on the border. So right on the border of the northern part of Kentucky is Cold Valley. Now let's look at where Coal Station is. All right, so it's on the opposite side, right? So you look all the way over here. It's Coal Station. Right. Well, it was pointing here originally, but I don't know if that's right. Hold on a second. I'm pretty sure this is a real place. It's saying Norfolk, so let's go there. So Norfolk. All right, so it's all the way over here by the water. So this is where they're saying that's at. All right, so from Cold Valley, that's fine, Burgos. From Cold Valley, Kentucky, this is where he is. He winds up moving all the way to Coal Station eventually. It began to way back there in Cold Valley, Kentucky, a long way ago. I was born like I am, don't you know, with hardly no eyes at all and blind. So we finding out that Blind Benny was always blind. My own mama and pappy rather, bless their hearts, died of the consumption. Does anybody know what consumption is? It actually kind of means something else too. Consumption.
They
Anybody?
died because they ate too much.
Yeah, so that's the normal meaning of what we think consumption means. Consumption means to eat, right? To consume. So if I consume something, I'm eating it. That's actually not what consumption is. Consumption was a disease that actually it's still in the world. We know it now as tuberculosis, right? So you guys actually wind up getting shots for school. I'm pretty sure one of those shots that you have to take for school before you're allowed in is a TB shot, which is a shot for tuberculosis. Um, but it was a really bad disease, kind of like now how we're all stuck home or whatever because of COVID. Um, Eventually, they were able to come up with a cure for tuberculosis and give people shots, but it was a pretty horrible disease. And like you always see like these old movies of people who have like a really bad cough and like blood winds up coming out, and you might see they wind up dying. So here you're finding out that this blind Benny's parents died of this disease, tuberculosis. My own mama and pappy, bless their hearts, died of the consumption when I was going on 12. So I had nobody to care for me and give me food. That's how I got to be the sin eater. What's a sin? SIN.
Isn't it something bad?
Yeah, essentially, right? So people who are religious believe that sins are things that like God does not approve of, right? They're like things that you do that are bad. So he's saying that he's a sin eater. So we'll find out what that is in a second. The what? I said? Yeah, the sin eater. Don't you know about sin eating, Gypsy? No, what's that? Well, it's this really old timey backwards tradition, and it goes like this. When a person dies, at the wake, and a wake, you guys might not know what a wake is. A wake is basically if there's like a death in to someone before the funeral, there's like a viewing where people can go see the body. So that's called a wake, okay? When the people go to visit the casket or whatever. So when a person dies at the wake, they take and spread out a banquet. A banquet's like a meal on his casket. The casket's where the dead body goes. all kinds of good eats. Then they call the sin eater to eat the food. The way they say what happens is all the dead person's sins go into the food, and it's the sin eater's job to eat up this food and take the sins into his own self, so the dead person could go to his glory clean and free. So what's basically going on here is you see the people of the town would have blind Benny go to these funerals and eat this food that's on top of the corpse's casket, and then they thought that by doing that, that this person would be able to go to what they would say is heaven or whatever, because he's taking their sins away by eating it. Um, I never heard the beat. I sputtered. They made you do that? They sure did. They always gave the job of sun eating to somebody who's down on their luck and can do no better. So obviously, you can imagine this guy doesn't have many options in his life. He's literally blind, right? And he's got no parents to take care of him. So they made this guy do this for a while. Um, there, that were me in them hard days in Cold Valley. To look at how good I'm doing now, you never know I was a sin eater for near about 15 years, right? So they make this guy do that for 15 years. The sin eater was always shunned. Shunned means that like you're not allowed to be around anyone, right? That's what shunning means. And scorn means that people are just talking bad about you. So this guy, obviously nobody wanted to be around him and everybody was talking bad about him, by the townsfolk, because I had all them sins inside me, you see. There weren't no more miserable person living than I was then. What got to bearing on my mind was who would eat poor old blind Benny's sins when he passed on. So now obviously he's thinking that, well, this is gonna come to pass and nobody's gonna want to eat his sins, so he's gonna die like miserable or whatever. Why, nobody would, that's who. No matter how down and out a body might be, he wouldn't take the chance of eating the sin eater sins, which meant I would have to pass on my time with all the sins in me, and nobody eat them for me. Then Amos Leemaster says to me one day, "Nonsense, Benny. That's what that is, a bunch of ignorant, superstitious nonsense." Them were his very words, and I sure was relieved to hear it from a man that I respected and trusted. I believed him, and he took a load off of my mind for me. Right, so now Gypsy's father, Amos, basically told him, like, that's a bunch of garbage. Like, don't listen to that nonsense. Then Amos says I should go with him to Coal Station, Virginia, where nobody knew me, and start a brand new life. "I'm opening a hardware store," Benny says, "and you're welcome to come with me. I'll give you a room above the store and plenty to eat. You'll never have to eat sins again." So that's how I come here 15 years ago. I done all I could to help out in the store and the volunteer fire department that Amos started, but being blind and all, I weren't able to help much. So you're kind of seeing the kindness of Amos. What did Amos do for Benny?
He took him in and gave him shelter and food.
Yeah, exactly, right? So he basically kind of saved his life. So not only did he take him away from this horrible existence, but he also like basically provided for him. It's almost like he's like a father for this guy. Um, when Amos died, Love sold the store. Again, that's the wife. But she put it in legal writing that blind Benny would always have a room at the hardware, because Amos promised. Nobody objected to it, and the new owners have been kind to me too. I am a lucky man. How good it was of Mom and Daddy, I was thinking, to do what they did for blind Benny, and not brag about it one bit. Again, nobody knows about this. We reached the quiet coal yards where the railroad cars were lined up neatly in the station, some full, some empty. You could smell the coal. So again, this is a coal mining town. They basically are making all their money off of coal. So coal's like giant rocks, right, that they use to like heat up stuff. So you need railroad stations there to like allow it to be sent to whoever needs it. We headed down the railroad. You could see the steel tracks like deep blue ribbons stretching far and away from there through the valley in the moon's light, following Black River as it snaked between the hills. That's an example of simile there. There was a cool breeze over this ghostly scene, and I knew all of it was carving an impression deep into my mind. I would be able to call up this picture again and again whenever I wanted to see it. The memory is clever that way. By the tracks there were houses anchored securely on the hillside. Here, Benny moved in and out of the yards, feeling his way without a sound, to find his treasures. Woodrow and I watched curiously from the tracks while waiting for him. Some people left things on their porches for Benny: worn out clothing, coffee, potatoes, tobacco. Right? So you see like Benny's going on his like little excursions late at night, but people are being kind and are actually leaving him stuff to pick up. These items he slipped into a pillowcase attached to his belt. Other useful things Benny found in the trash: an empty lard can, a newspaper, a piece of clothesline. Does anybody know what lard is? Lard. Lard. Some of you guys might know it as something different. Manteca. Do you guys know what manteca is? Manteca. Anybody? No.
Isn't it like animal fat?
Yeah, exactly. So manteca is animal fat. So people used to cook it with. I know my Spanish grandmother used to use it to cook with. Um, it's tasty, right? It's animal fat. You use it to like fry stuff, but it's not really healthy. But it tastes delicious. I like the flavor you get when you use manteca.
Oh,
More the
is that
flavor.
like stuff?
It's like you know what Crisco is. You know Crisco.
No.
Never heard of Crisco before. It's like a greasy, thick. It almost has like the same consistency as like hair gel, but you use it to cook with. It's like instead of using cooking oil,
Oh, yeah, never. I've seen that before.
yeah, it's called manteca. So a lot of people use it for like fried foods. It has better flavor than like just using oils. I like the flavor of it, but it's not that good for you. More dogs came up to us, nosing out me and Woodrow to see if we were acceptable. So again, all these dogs are in the neighborhood. And finding us to be fairly decent critters, let us stay. They leapt about, greeting each other with endless sniffing and tail wagging and dog talk. You could tell that they were all old friends. I counted 9 doggy heads. Benny patted each one and called them by their names, though he couldn't tell you the names of their owners. I suspected he made up names as he went along. We continued until we reached a long stretch where there were no houses at all. I smell a polecat, Benny said as he stopped to sniff the air. I hope we don't run into him, Woodrow said. Me and Gypsy might have a hard time explaining how we got sprayed by a polecat while we're supposed to be in bed asleep. So, I've never seen these things before, but I guess this thing behaves exactly like a skunk. I don't know, it's not going. Am I frozen? Can you guys hear me? It seems like my screen froze. Alright, let me try a different thing. Maybe close this thing up.
Yeah.
Alright, so this is a polecat. It almost looks like this thing looks like a ferret. Right, so I don't know, it's like slow on your screen. So this thing apparently can spray you like a skunk, I guess. I don't know. It looks like a ferret to me. I don't know. So I guess I would just be careful if you're ever out in the woods or you see this thing walking around in the thing, because it must be able to do the same thing as a skunk and spray you. But I've never even.
What
I've
is
never.
that again?
It's called a polecat, but it looks like a ferret, right? So if you look, this thing is a polecat.
Wait, that one looks like a cheetah.
No, this looks like a ferret. You ever see ferrets before? Look at this thing.
Yeah, I know. That's more like the skin color.
It's probably bigger. So let's see what like a ferret looks like to see, kind of compare it, right? So ferrets.
I asked my dad if I could get one of those.
Yeah. So if this is you probably asked to get it, see if you can get a ferret. So this is a ferret, but it looks like it's a lot smaller.
That one's a bit more white. The other one's a bit more beige.
Yeah, this one looks like it's. This thing looks like it's thicker too, like it's big. This thing's probably like taller. All right, so let's continue.
That one.
So I guess they must smell like skunks too. All right, so because they said they smell it. Benny chuckled. We're safe, he said. Even a panther wouldn't mess around with his pack of dogs. Oh, another piece of advice. Have you guys ever seen a skunk? You ever been sprayed by a skunk? It's one of the worst things ever.
Yeah, I've heard you need to bathe in tomato juice.
Yeah, it doesn't work. So I've had dogs before, and it seems like I've had 2 dogs get sprayed by a skunk, and they tell you to do all these things. We luckily found something at the pet store that got rid of it, but that smell is impossible to get rid of. So my whole house smelled like skunk for like 2 months. It was the worst.
I know something that works. Apparently, if you dunk yourself in vinegar, it starts to smell like very fast.
And we tried everything, and it didn't work. Luckily, we found like the stuff that they sold at the pet store. That was like the only thing that worked. But like they said, like tomato juice is like the old thing. Yeah, go ahead. But yeah, be careful. Stay away from skunks. It's awful. So now, you want to hear a joke? I said suddenly as the railroad tracks reminded me of a good one. Naturally, they did. There were these 2 men, you see, walking down the railroad tracks when all of a sudden they came upon a human leg lying on the tracks. Oh, lordy, lordy, said the first man. That looks like Joe's leg. Yep, said the second man. That is Joe's leg. So they walked on and they came upon an arm. "Oh, lordy, lordy," said the first man, "that looks like Joe's arm." "Yep," said the second man, "that is Joe's arm." So they walked on, they came upon a torso. "Oh, lordy, lordy," said the first man, "that looks like Joe's torso." "Yep," said the second man, "that is Joe's torso." So they walked on, they came upon a head. "Oh, lordy, lordy," said the first man, "that looks like Joe's head." "Yep," said the second man, "that is Joe's head." So the first man walked over, picked up Joe's head by the ears. See, looked it in the face, and he shook it and he hollered, "Joe, Joe, are you okay?" Well, that was a winner. We laughed till we couldn't laugh a bit more. It seemed like nothing ever had been so funny. And for the years after, whenever me and Benny would chance to meet up again, he'd say to me, "Joe, Joe, you okay?" I don't know. I don't know if I really find that joke too funny, but it's kind of like dark about finding like body parts. The dogs trotted along happily at our heels like they were glad to be there with us, even if we didn't have any good sense. My spirits soared. I felt like skipping, except you can't skip on railroad tracks. I wanted to sing, but Benny did that for me. He broke into song so smoothly it was like part of the natural night. He was some mother's darling, some mother's son. Once he was fair, and once he was young. Mary, she rocked him, her baby to sleep. Then they left him to die like a tramp on the street. And I remembered something that Mrs. Compton said to us in Sunday school one time. She said Jesus might come to us in disguise. He may be dressed in rags, she said. He may be old and ugly. He may be diseased or crippled. So be careful how you treat people. On down the tracks there was a huge rock jutting out of the bank and way out over the river. We climbed on it, helping blind Benny along so he wouldn't fall. The dogs nosed around the water's edge while we sat on the rock looking at the moon reflected in the water. There were billions of stars dancing between the mountain tops, and we could hear the water lapping gently against the bank. A light breeze played with what was left of my hair. I ran my hand through it and marveled at the sensation. It felt like somebody else's head. We were quiet, each in our own thoughts. At one point Woodrow took off his glasses to clean them on his shirt tail, and I saw his profile clearly against the night sky. Why, he looks for all the world like Prince Valiant, I thought. Then Benny sang again. From this valley they say you're going. I shall miss your bright eyes and sweet smile, for they say you are taking the sunshine that has brightened our pathway a while. Won't you think of this valley you're leaving? Oh, how lonely, how sad it'll be. Do you think of your sad heart you're breaking, and the grief that you're causing me? Come and sit by my side if you love me. Do not hasten to bid me adieu, but remember the Red River Valley, and the one who has loved you so true. So again, this is a song poem about somebody leaving, right? Somebody disappearing, and is that person who's leaving thinking about the person they're leaving behind? It's so sad, Woodrow said. It reminds me of Mama. Why would that remind him of his mother?
Because she left.
Yes, because she's gone, right? It reminds me of Amos, Benny whispered. Why would it remind him of his Amos?
Because Amos was so nice.
Yeah, but what else about Amos? What happened?
He left.
He did not leave.
He killed himself.
Yeah, he died. Yeah, he killed himself. It reminds me of Amos, Benny whispered. I miss him every day, still, yet after all this time. He was the best friend I ever had. And you can imagine he probably was, right? This guy literally rescued this guy. Me and Gypsy will be your friends, Benny, Woodrow said sweetly. You just call on us the same as you did Uncle Amos whenever you need anything. I thought I heard Benny sniffling. Why is Benny sniffling? Why is Benny sniffling? Did he be Cortez?
Because of the skunk or whatever the thing that's.
No, it doesn't have to do with that. Why is Benny sniffling?
He was crying.
He's crying. Now here's the second part of the question. Why is he crying?
He's remembering of Amos Lee Master.
That's not why he's crying.
He's sad because Amos Lee Master died.
He's not sad.
Oh, he's happy that they're going to be his friend.
Exactly. He's happy these two people just said that they would be his friends. Right? So again, this guy's got this life where he's probably, most of the people don't really talk to him or whatever. He comes out at night. He's just hidden. So the fact that these two people want to be his friends is making him happy. At about 2 a.m., we were dragging up Resident Street towards home. Me and Woodrow wore into a frazzle, right? So they're like exhausted. We had dropped off dogs one by one along the way. So the only one left was our beloved dog. Benny was working our street then, and his pouch was nearly full. This has been the most fun I ever had, Woodrow. How about you, Miss Beauty? Said Benny. You have fun? Impulsively, I stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the cheek, right beneath his eye. I reckon nobody was more surprised than me. When I'm allowed to come back and live one day over again excitedly as it was, This stay will be considered. So remember, um, Woodrow had this idea that if you die, you can relive a day. So she's telling them that this day she'd want to relive. We left him standing there in the moonlight with Dog still by his side, and with one hand Benny was touching the spot I had kissed. Sometimes impulsive is okay. So remember, we went over impulsive the other day. It means to do things without thinking.
It's a matcha day.
Yeah, so if you think about it, this was a super kind thing to this guy, right? So this guy's probably never had anybody kiss him on the cheek, right? He's kind of like this frightening, blind figure. So that was kind of a big act of kindness for her. All right, so go on to Socrative. I will share that information. Actually, let me stop this first.